Well, good middle of the nightmare to you. I'm Alexander T. Newport, your Philobabblist Extraordinaire. Today's date is the 22nd of August, 2020. Quite often, well, not quite often, but once in a while, when I write about perfect eternal conscious energy and the fact that this is a dream world that we all scripted and predetermined before the Big Bang, and thus, point out the fact that we are eternal thinking, feeling entities. Invariably, once in a while, someone will ask for proof. And I will say, well, what kind of proof do you want? What form of proof do you want? Do you want video proof? Do you want audio proof? Do you want some kind of mathematical formula proof? I mean, what the hell do you... After a while, it should occur to you that there is no fucking proof available. There is 100% no possible way to prove that there is life after death. There's no possible way to prove that you're an eternal thinking, feeling entity. And the reverse is true. There's absolutely 100% no possible way for you to prove that death is eternal oblivion, that death is the end of thinking and feeling and being aware of the fact that you are a thinking, feeling entity. There's no proof that there's a wipeout. There's no proof either way. There is equally no proof either way. All you've got is the appearance of a dead body. But I think most people, by the time they're fucking 40 or 50, they've realized there is a difference. There's a difference between that thinking, feeling entity that is wearing that costume called the human body. There's a difference, that they are not one and the same. The body is just merely a fucking costume. That's all it is. And with that costume comes a psychological role, a psychological personality, a psychological unfolding. Just as every moment of your body's existence has already been predetermined and scripted, well, so too has your psychological, mental, and emotional reality all been scripted. And it's meant to feel like you're participating. It's meant to feel like you're making choices, that you could actually make mistakes and so forth. It's meant to feel like this. It's not wrong. It's not a mistake. So that's what I've started telling people when they ask for proof. Where's the proof? And I say, well, what form of proof do you want? In the hopes that, they will actually think for 3 seconds, 3 continuous seconds. Think about it and realize that there's no possible proof available. It's a best guess at best. That's all anyone can offer. What you would call reports of near-death experiences and so forth, well, it's anecdotal, isn't it? It's hearsay. It's not proof. Even if it's coming from your beloved spouse or child or parent, even if they're telling it to you, it doesn't mean it doesn't constitute proof. Because you have no way of knowing whether it was an actual experience, their near-death experience, or if it was just somehow similar to a dream type of experience, But nonetheless, it's nothing that you experience, so why should you trust or believe what anyone else has to say about an experience that you haven't had? So there is no proof available. But if you think about it long enough, you come to the conclusions that I came to, and that I talk about in my videos here at this channel. I would say that there is proof of perfect eternal conscious energy in as much as this, just look at this existence. Look at these human costumes. Look at the earth. Look at all the zillions of different creatures on this earth. This world that you're walking in, this body that you're walking with, or walking in, wearing. This body that you're wearing and this world that you're walking within, it's a magnificent creation. It could only be the product of something infinitely intelligent, because it's obviously the product of design and engineering. You know, these things could not just build themselves, these human bodies, this earth, the sun. They are all the product of design and engineering. That's clearly obvious. And you know that humans didn't create humans, and humans didn't create trees, and humans didn't create the earth or the sun or the planets or the galaxies. So something else did, something that's obviously invisible, and something that's obviously extremely fucking intelligent. But instead of attributing that to just some kind of singular entity that you would call a god, it's much simpler, friendlier, and fearless, and good news for all living creatures, if indeed every living creature is the equivalent of what you would call a god. But see, even the fucking idea about a god, most of the people that talk about it and then claim to believe it really haven't thought about it much. They think that when they're talking about God, that somehow human logic and reason goes out the window and doesn't apply, which is just ridiculous. So if you apply logic and reason to the idea of a God, well, at some point you would conclude that that God has always existed. Because, you know, the first question you ask when you're even 8 years old, like I was, where did God come from? And you say, well, there must have been a God that created a God. Well, where did that God come from? And pretty soon it gets kind of silly and sickening. You know, you feel sickness in the pit of your stomach, because it seems like you're definitely going the wrong direction with this God made God, made God, made God, made God, forever and ever and ever going back. It doesn't make any sense. You know, so at best you would conclude that God has always existed. And something that has always existed, well, the only something that could always exist would be a conscious something. Something that thinks and feels and is aware of the fact that it is a thinking, feeling entity. That's the only thing that could possibly be eternal. An inanimate object could not be eternal. But an infinitely intelligent thinking, feeling entity who is aware that it is a thinking, feeling entity, it is eternal. It was never created. It was never born. It will never die. It can never be changed. It can't change itself. It can't be attacked. It can't be threatened. It can't be harmed. It is the same thinking, feeling entity it has always known itself to be and will always know itself to be. Its reality, its relentless state of sobriety and sanity, it never changes. And so that God, being eternal, having always existed, you would say that it is real, because what is real is something that has always existed and can never be changed, and can never be harmed or threatened or destroyed. So that eternal something that has always existed, it cannot create other eternal things, because if it did, those things would have a creation date. They would have a beginning, thus making them not eternal. What is eternal has always existed. It has never had a beginning. It has never had an end. It has always been alive. It will always be alive. It cannot create anything eternal, because if it did, so to speak, well, that thing would have a beginning. And if it has a beginning, well, then that means it's not eternal. The only thing that is eternal is something that has always existed. That's what eternity means. No beginning, no end, the middle of forever. So, the only thing that eternal creator could create would be temporary things. Would be what you would call a dream world. That's the only thing it could create. Temporary things. Now, could it create temporary conscious creations? I say no. Anything that God would create, it would have to experience itself. So if it created kangaroos, it would be every kangaroo. In other words, indeed, if there was a God responsible for all of this life, responsible for your existence here, your form, your personality, your consciousness, if it had created everything here, only it could be the consciousness that is experiencing every fucking existence here. And personally, when you think about it long enough, that contains a level of complexity which renders it useless as far as being the epitome of simplicity. The epitome of simplicity would be that every living creature, every living physical creature, is the product and creation of its perfect eternal spiritual self. And that all these perfect eternal spiritual selves, of which there is an infinite number of, they are all equally perfect and perfectly equal to one another. Not one of them is older or younger, dumber or smarter, because they've always existed. And so, given that they're thinking, feeling entities, what are they to do with their thinking and feelingness? What are they to do with their awareness? They've always been alive, they will always be alive. Therefore, that strongly implies they don't have to do anything to stay alive. They don't have to protect themselves from anything. They don't have to feed on anything. They don't need anything to exist. They couldn't end their existence if they wanted to. They couldn't end their existence if everyone else wanted them to. So you have 100% no needs, no obligations, no responsibilities. You owe gratitude to no one for your existence because you've always been alive. You were not created. I'm talking about you as a spirit. So what are you to do throughout eternity? Well, obviously, we have an imagination. And we are able to collude and collaborate with each other and plan out these dream lives. And this particular dream world is a hellish, nightmarish dream world. And we can take it, and we do take it, and it's always meant to be. It was always meant to be a soap opera, and it probably always will be a soap opera. Which means there's always going to be ups and downs and twists and turns. Just when you think that it's going to be smooth sailing from here on out, boom, heart attack, stroke, or maybe your spouse has a heart attack or a stroke, and suddenly your lifestyle takes a twist. You know, maybe the place you work at burns to the ground, and the company decides not to, relocate anywhere, but just give up. I'm just saying that it's always meant to be a soap opera. It's twists and turns, ups and downs. I mean, look at this fucking great viral hoax of 2020. I never saw it coming, baby. I never imagined that we'd be living in a world. I mean, it would be one thing if the plague was real. That would be one thing. But the fact that it's a fucking hoax, and that it's an obvious, fucking move to try to manipulate and control people, that it's a big grand experiment just to see how gullible the population are. And look, a large portion of the majority of the fucking population fell for the hoax, believing that there's this plague spreading around, and that they need to wear masks, and that grandmas need to stand outside and look through the living room window and wave to their grandchildren rather than hug them and kiss them. They believe the lie. They believe the hoax. Well, anyways. So yeah, you want proof that there's life after death? You want proof? Well, there is no proof. That's just all there is to it. And I think that's very telling. There's 100% no proof that death means the end of you as a thinking, feeling entity, and there's 100% no proof that you continue to exist as a thinking, feeling entity after death. And I think that's very telling. But as far as proof that perfect eternal conscious energy created this existence, and that all living creatures actually are perfect eternal conscious energy, they're perfect eternal spirits, well, like I say, that proof is right in front of you. Put it this way, as I've put it many times before. Look at all the objects in your room. Now, look at the glasses, look at the flag, look at the shirt, look at the jewelry, look at the computer screen, look at the walls, look at the radio, look at the cup, the container holding the cookies, the scarf, the trash can. You know, all of those objects, you will agree and admit, absolutely, that all of those objects did not create themselves and did not just appear out of nothingness. You will agree that every one of those objects, every one of those man-made objects, began as a thought first. They didn't just, box of Cheesy Bites didn't just appear out of nothingness. Someone thought about it. Someone thought about the container, thought about the size, thought about the shape, thought about the contents, what the contents would be made of, and so on and so forth, didn't they? Well, it's only the teeny tiniest fucking leap of faith that all nature-made objects are the result of design and engineering, are the result of thoughts first. It's just that, the nature-made objects were obviously created by an eternal thinking, feeling entities. Yeah? Because you know that the temporary entities here didn't create this temporary world or themselves. So something eternal must have done so. And like I say, clearly, we all know that this is a product of thought. That, someone had to think about this and draw it, and decide on, exactly how it's going to look, didn't they? And then they created it, then they made it. Well, obviously, these human bodies, this earth, all the creatures, the sun, the galaxies, they're obviously objects, and they're obviously products of design and engineering. Well, they didn't design and engineer themselves. Something had to think about them, and then create them or manifest them. So, I wish I could offer you proof. But, as far as life after death, and as far as us being perfect eternal conscious energy and being perfect spirits and so forth, but the fact that there is no proof, like I say, is very telling. Because if you wanted to escape a relentless reality of sanity and sobriety, which is basically blissful compared to anything else, if you wanted to escape that for a while, because it gets numb and boring after a while since it never changes, a state of bliss is, very lovely, but if it never changes and you know that there are other things available besides just bliss, such as an adventurous dream where you forget yourself, where you forget your reality, and you're a completely different character and in a completely strange and bewildering world, that is certainly preferable than being bored throughout eternity as an eternal thinking, feeling entity, doing nothing else but being aware of the fact that it's an eternal thinking, feeling entity. And over and over and over, the arguments are, why is it such a hellish world? There's no way I would have designed this life. There's no way, you're full of shit. Well, I'm sorry. But if you were a little bit smarter, you would realize that it's much more preferable to take the blame for your life than to blame it on anything else or anyone else. You know, it makes much more sense that you're the creator of this existence, but you're not creating it here and now, moment by moment, like the self-help and the positive thinkers and the law of attraction people tell you. No, instead, you created it all before the whole fucking world began. You know? And so it's unfolding and unfurling moment by moment. You are doing and thinking and feeling what occurs to you moment by moment. It's almost like it bubbles up, you know, and you become aware of it and you live it out. And like I say, no matter how bad it gets here, no matter how bad of a hell it gets here, it truly beats being bored throughout forever. Just think of that as an alternative. Being bored throughout the middle of forever. Fuck that. Righteous. I've been your host, Alexander T. Newport, your Philobabblist Extraordinaire. It has been the 22nd of August, 2020. I do have books for sale at Amazon. It'd be groovy if you hit the subscribe button and gave this video a thumbs up. Remember, YouTube is deleting videos of mine, so if you go to my BitChute channel, chances are there will be videos there of mine that you have not seen yet. Groovy. Be cool, fool.